now, the Charlie Hodge Show, starring the man who would like to applaud the Elephant Man's hat maker, Mr. Charlie Hodge, and his sidekick, the Chicken Wing. Well, Wing, we're back, baby.
We're back.
And being in podcast form and everything, I don't know about you, but it feels as if there's like an unspoken weight, like if a fat ghost were sitting on you. And for some reason, that fat ghost went to have an apparition hoagie or something, and it's off. And I was wondering what it was, and it was just like, no matter what, you and I, we're not overly vulgar, we're not outwardly racist, but there is a possibility that we could hedge some subjects where it used to be on the air, palms would get sweaty, just to be skirting it. But now, if we want to address something, we can just go with our own guts, like, you know what I mean?
We don't have to have that spidey sense in the back of our heads. So, should I be saying this on the air right now? Is there going to be a special interest group that's angry about what I'm saying?
I know, because we know we're not going to take it too far. Well, let me go on record. May actually take it too far sometimes.
But we're not going to be vulgar for the sake of being vulgar.
Well, for example, I was thinking we have the freedom to do a show. I was thinking about titling this first podcast, Fuck Chili's.
Whoa!
I don't plan on saying fuck a lot. Because, you know, it's like anything. It shows a weak vocabulary.
Did that feel good, though?
It did. It felt good. And that felt good on several levels because, first off, the FCC doesn't allow you to say the F-bomb.
No.
And advertising revenue does not let you say anything negative about Chili's.
Right.
So really, that right there is the world's most compact, get fired for any reason whatsoever phrase. Say it.
But, you want me to say it? Fuck Chili's.
Yeah, there you have it.
Fuck them in their donkey ass.
Exactly. Now, from now on, though, instead of the F word, we will say coitus operandi. It's a new legal term I've been going over with. Yeah, I do. I told you I took Latin for several years. And now that we got that awkwardness out of the way, I think we should dive right in and exercise these new freedoms we have because of the podcast. And this is a good opener, a good story to look at.
Okay, but before we do that, do we need to guess which AC/DC song we're going to be playing first?
We don't have to do that either.
We don't?
Nope. There's no AC/DC song coming. It's not going to happen.
It's just you and me talking?
You and me talking. We don't have to jingle out.
Well, how long do we have?
As long as we want.
Really?
Yeah.
We can just talk till we're done talking?
We can talk till we're done talking, or, God forbid, the Balcones fault comes back alive and we're gobbled into the earth.
No.
Well, don't say anything about tectonics then, and Mother Nature will play her part.
I promise.
Now, look at this headline. This is just rife with stereotype and innuendo, and it just calls for some adult humor. Chinese condoms too small for South Africans. I mean, that's a real story.
Yeah, that's a stereotype come to life.
Yeah. And normally, you'd be like, oh, well, that implies that black people have giant penises and that Chinese people have small penises. Well, and that if a black person were to wear a Chinese person's condom, it would be like a finger caught or something. But you can't hedge that subject. You know what that hedge is?
Stereotypes?
It's made of that pointy bush that sometimes you fall into when you're drunk.
The holly?
Yeah, and you get the 1,000 points of drunk pain.
Mm-hmm.
I
know that feeling.
Too slow to react, though. And it just keeps happening as you're wishing it would stop, and you're like, why?
The more you struggle to get out, the more you get pricked.
Wallowing in a holly bush. Like, what's the old nursery rhyme? Who's in the briar patch? Little bunny foo-foo?
Yeah, I believe that's right.
So you're doing it right now.
What?
Someone else was in the briar patch. Was it Little Bunny Foo-Foo?
No, I don't think it was. I can't remember who it was.
Yes, you
honestly,
can.
I can't.
You don't want to say it.
I don't.
You still... And that's what we're talking about. See? We stopped ourselves before we just started blurting. You know who it is? It's the little Shaloub baby.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Someone threw the Shaloub baby.
I see what you did there.
The word Shaloub is still perhaps my number one campaign to make sure that it becomes a common household phrase, so that way no one will be offended in the future, and we can live in a harmonious place, much like in what's that Stallone movie where they bring him back to life?
Cobra.
Demolition Man.
Oh.
Cobra. All he did was chew on a match. And then when he finally needs to strike it, yeah, it's not soggy with spit. He's been chewing on that match for like 5 days.
That was some knife the bad guy had in that movie, though, huh?
It really was. That thing, it sold a lot of knives at the Ren Fest. Could you imagine? Some guy that gets $4 Chinese knockoff knives is like, woo, finally one for the spiked afro. That's what it'd be called, because it had that like
the
dome
spikes
of
over
spikes. You watch Boardwalk Empire?
Yeah.
Have you noticed that's a real thing? The doughboys in World War I were issued those knives. Remember? He carries that one in his boot, and it's got the spikes on. It's like brass knuckles with spikes.
For hand-to-hand,
yeah,
close
and
quarters
you can
combat.
stab someone, or I guess also punch stab them.
Yeah.
If you had spikes on your knuckles.
Take the fight out of them pretty quick.
Got that right. Woo-wee. But anyway, where were we? We were talking about Chinese condoms being too small for South Africans.
That's what the news story is reporting. That's a real thing.
Yeah. A South African court has blocked the government from buying 11 million Chinese condoms, saying they are too small. And then the government high-fived themselves. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about.
They don't fit on my hang dog.
But it turns out not only are they too small, they're made out of some sort of porous material.
Oh.
So they're not, what would we call them, effective against HIV.
No, or pregnancy, or
and you don't have to have been to Africa to know that they got a little problem with the AIDS.
Yeah, it's rampant.
It's rampant over there.
Rampant.
You can't say rampant about many things.
No. Not on a
this
podcast.
Is rampant. Blowjobs in high school, that's rampant. I saw that on Oprah.
We could say blowjobs.
Rampant. Yeah, you don't have to say the old Bob Richardson anymore. And I can say the old Bob Richardson.
We got told we couldn't say that anymore because there was an attorney in town who heard from a friend who told him through the telephone game
that we were innuendoing that his name meant oral sex.
And
it's not fair. That's my brother's real name, Bob Richardson. And I used to say, hey, did you get the old Bob Richardson? And then what was the other one? The diving Streisand?
Streisand, yeah. I don't think we were told we couldn't say that, but it did make a whole lot of sense without the Bob Richardson. They kind of go hand in hand.
Who's going to run around saying, diving Streisand, diving Streisand?
Those guys sure talk about diving Streisand a lot.
Sounds like a safe word at your dominatrix's house. You know what I'm talking about?
Won't they ever talk about Bob Richardson's?
Woo-wee. Anyway, so they canceled the order of these condoms, and we've made it through our first racially edgy story.
It was racially edgy.
It involved stereotypes about penises that we all...
I thought we did pretty well with it, too.
I did, too. And
it's a successful hurdle is what you call that.
You know, you and I sat at a table recently. We're recording the podcast now, but last night, to be honest, what did you think about our appearance on the Austin Variety Show?
I thought it was good.
We had some high points.
We got
Tell
some
you
good
what,
feedback on Facebook.
We our takeoff, though, was like when you get on a puddle jumper to go from the big airport to the little island, and there's a fat bastard in the back, and you're kind of dragging ass, and then they stop, and they go, get off. You have to get out. Get out. And the fat bastard Charlie was stuck in sentimental sand. And I was like, those poor victims of the fire. And I was like, my head was going, shut up. No one wants to hear about it.
No,
they're here to raise money.
Yeah.
But quit talking about tragedy, you jackwagon.
Well, we had to be sensitive about it.
Yeah. And then we kicked that fat guy off the plane. And I feel like it took off.
Soared like eagles, we did.
And it's really, Chicken Wing are well-known personalities. We don't need to talk about how we've been doing live television shows. The reason to bring up our appearance on the Austin Variety Show is what happened with a certain legendary celebrity.
Really get into this on the podcast?
Did you tell your wife? And you're allowed to be proud. Last night, I was, giving you a hard time about it, outing you for punking Junior Brown, but really, I've got nothing but the utmost respect for you.
Well, it's a joke that I've been doing since I was a teenager, which is where you stand on the other side of a door that's going to open towards you, and when somebody pushes that door open, you smack the door with your hand, and then you suddenly, put both hands on your face as though they opened the door and it popped you in the face. And it always works, and it's always funny. But I didn't know...
Unless it's a glass door, you don't know who you're doing it to.
Well, that wouldn't be funny at all.
You're going blind Nillo on that prank.
Yeah. But I did it last night to Junior Brown himself, the famous musician.
Gotta get up every morning just hero. To say goodnight to you.
And he was so apologetic. He was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." And I was like, "Oh God, you're Junior Brown. You're much shorter than you look like on an album cover."
It's a classic hat though he wears. He's got that taco fold in it.
It is. That is iconic, is what it is.
You could put a pair of tacos up there.
I think he does. I think he has
I bet
a
he's
pair
done
up
it
there
before.
at all times.
I've never been to his Wikipedia page, but has he ever had that classic rock star phase where it was like double guitars and cocaine?
Yeah, and he was hiding white cotton panties up there.
With the tacos?
With the tacos.
That was a Junior Brown special, panty tacos.
It was panty tacos.
If you've ever partied with Junior Brown, then you know he will eat panties in a taco show.
At some point in that night, panty tacos are coming out.
One time I saw him simmer them in some seasoning.
That's never pretty.
I was gonna say it wasn't pretty.
There's never pretty.
He ate it, though, like a salesman eating his hat. So you punked Junior Brown,
I did.
and I thought it was pretty legendary.
So much so that you brought it up on stage. He's backstage getting ready to go on. We're opening for him, and we're talking to the people, and you just let fly that I had done this to Junior Brown. He still had no idea.
Yeah.
I covered it. I went, oh, no, I'm fine. It only hurt a little bit. Let's go on our merry ways. Never to speak again.
Much like the Taiwanese hooker said when she left his room, it only hurt a little bit. Let's just go on our separate ways. But I thought it was pretty awesome, and I outed you for it. But really, I like a man that can follow through on a good prank. Really a human. And if my wife were in the room right now, she would give me the look and tell me not to tell this. Because I know if we were ever on that, what's that game show, the Newlywed Game or something, where you got to guess what their answer is?
The Newlywed Game, yeah.
If they were to ask my Becca, hey, what's your biggest regret? I know hands down what the answer would be.
What's her biggest regret?
We were in New York City. She's part of an improv troupe, and they got accepted to the Del Close Festival.
Oh, yeah.
And they were performing up there in some theater. Very vanguard. So vanguard. But we were killing time, and we were down in Chelsea, and we were just walking through the streets, which that's just kind of what you do. Mm-hmm. It's a mile a minute in that big city. But there was this museum called the Museum of Sex. And it's been there for a long time. And, like, the first floor focuses all on animal sex. Like, it goes through all the different species. Like, almost all species have gay members.
Penguins are sometimes gay.
Oh, a manatee. A manatee, you got a 2 out of 3 chance they're dude smooching, pee-pee touching manatees.
Same with porpoises?
Dolphins are the most fucked up creatures on the planet.
They'll fuck a blowhole.
Yeah, and not without permission.
Yeah.
I mean, they will walk, like, if they, like on the playground, like if you ever got shoved down by a bully, the equivalent of shoving a dolphin down is sticking your dolphin penis in the other dolphin's blowhole.
That's just rude.
Which is also where they breathe.
Just rude. Now, yeah, it's like just walking up to somebody and putting your penis in their mouth.
Then you finally get to the surface. That first breath you take just tastes like penis. Tastes just like dolphin penis.
That tastes like salt and penis.
And then salt again.
And more salt.
Then a slight aftertone of penis.
And trout.
And ducks. Ducks have the longest dicks of like all...
Proportionally?
Yeah, of all creatures.
Okay.
Comes out like a corkscrew.
Woo.
Yeah, I know.
What, whale penis? Did you see one of those?
See one. You know, they obviously have giant penises because they're a whale, but it's kind of like Shaquille O'Neal. Even if he has a small penis, it's going to look giant.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because they say the average is like 6 inches, but his would, I don't know, it just seems like it would hang like it would look like, you know, when a giraffe is being born and it's hanging out of the...
Yeah, it's got a ways to go. Yeah.
But anyway, the whale penis was impressive. Oh, but the point of the story. So anyway,
things you regret.
We didn't realize that when you go upstairs, it goes all into human sexuality. It has this exhibit, the beginning of porn, where it shows all these old black and white, you know,
lithographs.
And like little reels. And then there's a section for sex toys and implements. And there's, you know, the first dildo, and then they have sex machines. Like the things where it's like they use like a Craftsman toolbox, one of those stand-up ones, as a gear house, and it'll have like a hydraulic arm coming out of it and a giant fleshy dildo on the end. I kid you not. There are people that this is some sort of subculture where you ain't doing it right unless you're getting done by R2-D2.
Well, what amazes me is that somebody saw that contraption and said, you know, this really should be in a museum. This shouldn't be just out here in public for anyone to use. This should be in a museum where it can be admired by the public.
Could you imagine the husband one day answers the phone? Can you hold on a second? Honey, I told you so. Call from New York City. They want my machine.
I told you I was a genius.
She never believed me. But anyway, the point of this and the regret part is I have my camera rolling because my wife's doing some commentary on the sex machines. And there's one on display that you're allowed to use. Like, you can push the button and it makes it operate. And there's a big red button. And all in all, this thing's probably over 5 feet long, an apparatus, like with the wheelhouse and everything. And I look, and then there's this giant fat lady bending over directly in front of the dildo. It's pointed right at her butt, like an inch away. And
She's unawares.
No, the woman bending over has no idea that a millimeter behind her, there's a giant latex black penis.
With a lot of torque.
And I look at my wife, and I just go, hit the button. I'm rolling, hit the button. And she sees the situation. She goes, oh, my God. I go, hit the button. Hit it. I'm looking at her. She panics, and, like, I think she thought it would be rude. And I'm like, hit the button. Do it. And the woman's finishing tying her shoe. I'm like, hit the button. The woman gets up, like, dusts herself off, and walks away. And right then it sunk in to my wife. She went, oh, man.
She realized that opportunity is never, ever going to present itself again. I mean, people just don't get an untied shoelace in front of that contraption.
It's had a weird after effect.
Yeah?
Now, as with many regrets in life, my wife tries to constantly undo it. Mm-hmm. So whenever she sees anyone bent over, she gooses them.
Pulls out a dildo.
Just rams them right in the ass. Just can't go to Christmas parties anymore. Because eventually someone's going to want to put a Christmas present under a tree. Oh, Oklahoma.
What are you compensating for?
So anyway, that's when I learned a Polynesian with a hay fever's got to stay away from grass skirts. Oh, we're rolling. Wing, the podcast is underway. We're recording this in the back room of Common Interest.
We are.
One of our favorite bars. It's a sports bar, karaoke bar, and just an all-around good time. They serve those Jell-O shots in like a 90-gauge syringe.
Yes.
It looks like if there were a Tupperware man and a Tupperware man had a penis, this would be it. It's a giant phallic plastic thing.
And yet, I don't think I've ever been in this bar with you without drinking one of those.
Well, you know, that's
because you insist.
That's how I tackle my insecurities. Whenever I'm around sexually suggestive food like that, whether it be a foot-long chili dog or, you know, a corn dog with a condom on it.
Yeah.
Anything, I have to go ahead and tackle it. And same thing goes with the Jell-O shots, because really nothing says to the crowd, I'm comfortable with who I am.
Yeah, because it's not manly to do one of those at all.
Oh, not only is it a giant syringe, but it's full of goo.
Yeah.
And you just use a plunger to inject it. And at some point you're like, that's too much, but it keeps going.
Start choking on it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't all go in your mouth. Some of it gets on your mustache, and there's nothing manly about that. Goo on your mustache.
And you finally know what it's like to have goo in your mouth and there be too much of it and the source not stop or care. The syringe doesn't care, Matt. It cares not.
It's a great equalizer.
Anyway, we are in the back room of the Common Interest, and Chicken Wing was just about to tell me about a real-life Weekend at Bernie's moment, and I said, hold up, Lil Beefer. We need to hit record. Now, is this for real, like a couple of meth, addicts found a dead body and were playing with it?
Just a couple of guys who had an idea that seemed good at the time, but in retrospect, they might have made a mistake. I wish it was out of Florida. It's not. It's out of Denver. But the AP reports that 2 men are accused of driving around Denver with a dead friend, running up a bar tab on his account, and using his ATM card at strip clubs in what appeared to be a disturbing reflection of the movie Weekend at Bernie's.
Hold on. They knew their friend was dead?
Oh, yeah.
And they brought him with them?
They decided to go partying with him.
But they took his card and left him in like the trunk of the car?
Well, they went to a couple of different places. It's unclear how Jeffrey Jarrett, 43 years old, died, but the men are not charged in his death. The coroner said toxicology tests are pending. Young and Robinson, the 2 men, are free on bond but couldn't be reached for comment on Friday. In Denver last month, according to a police affidavit, Young arrived at Jarrett's home and found him unresponsive. But rather than call the authorities, Young went to find Robinson. The duo returned to Jarrett's home and put his lifeless body into an SUV and headed to a night spot where they spent more than an hour drinking, leaving his body in the vehicle. Police say the 2 men used his card to pay for their drinks, noting, quote, they didn't have Jarrett's consent. Robinson and Young then drove to another restaurant to hang out. Jarrett's body slumped in the back along for the ride. They then returned to his home, carried him in, and put him in bed. From there, they went to go get gas and made a stop at a burrito joint, again using Jarrett's card. The 2 men then went to a strip club where authorities say they used Jarrett's card to take out $400 from an ATM.
I'm still unclear why Jared was along for the ride at all.
Well, I guess his body was where his wallet was, I suppose.
Yeah,
They
but
could have separated the two, but they didn't.
you know, sometimes I forget that not everybody's the intellectual equal of not even you and I, but I could see that argument. Well, man, we got to take the body. What if they ask whose card it is? We got to have a voucher. Mr. Nussbaum here is going to
He's in the car.
provide that.
He told us to come get it. He's very sleepy.
He is sleepy. Weekend at Bernie's is a movie I've gotten a lot of mileage out of as far as references. You know, it comes in handy in so many instances. Like back when Fidel Castro was always falling down and seemed real sick.
Yeah.
And his brother Raul Castro even went so far as to come out and say, look, my brother is still alive. He's not dead. And then, but it was seen that the producers for Weekend at Bernie's landed at a secret airport as Fidel waves from his podium. Yes, no, everything's good. Everyone's still driving around in 57 Chevys.
Well, you were at the bar that Halloween where they had a costume contest, and Blanche and Chewy and I did Weekend at Bernie's, which is a costume that you really have to commit to. I mean, you have to do that all night. You can't just stop doing it and go, oh, yeah, no, we're not doing that anymore. You're in.
Yeah, you were Bernie.
I was Bernie.
And then your two friends were Jonathan Silverman and Andrew McCarthy.
Exactly.
And I could tell as you guys got drunker, the fact that you all had to go pee together was annoying.
We had to make sure there were 3 urinals.
Y'all cycled up like a bunch of girls who lived together for the first time.
We did.
Look, fellas, we've got to make this easier.
We got to make this plan. As you get more drunk, pretending to be a dead guy gets easier.
I can see that.
It's easier and easier. Oh, unless you forget that you're dead, or you're supposed to be dead. Then it gets more difficult. But as far as slumping, I got really good at slumping.
Yeah, and
By night's end.
it's a fine line between acting and the real thing. We were talking about that story. Well, it happens a lot, but where like some college freshman, usually who's joined a fraternity, will drink themselves to death.
The worst.
And then in an unintentional Weekend at Bernie's, their friends continue to party with the corpse.
Right. And draw penises on his forehead.
Mm-hmm. Which really, there is no proper way to relay that to the bereaved. Hi, I'm Billy. Yeah, I was a pledge brother of your son. We were really looking forward to, getting to know one another. We had 2 classes together. Real quick, before the funeral, I feel like I better come clean because you're probably going to find out. I'm the one that drew the dick dripping jizz on his eye. That was me.
I feel bad about it, but I thought it was a rather good rendering.
At the time, you can understand how hilarious it was going to be. But here we are. So anyway, and my girlfriend's a vegetarian if you're doing any sort of
After party.
foods, a reception of any kind. Anyway, maybe, well, she'll eat whatever. We can stop afterward. Anyway, this is Billy. Dick drawer, dead son.
Call me.
Oh, my number. Let me leave that. Oh, God. But have you ever, how'd you know you were going to go to UT? Did you go through a system of trial and error and try and select a school? Or
I did. I had like backup schools. I applied to Harvard, UT, and Stephen F. Austin. And I had to get.
Never has there been a more vast over/under of schools.
I know.
than
I was
that.
all over the map, but I was like, I'm going to one of them. And in order to get into UT, which is the one I really wanted, I just applied to Harvard to make my mom happy.
I thought that would be to make your mom laugh, like she'd been drinking and was like, "Do it, honey, send it.
That'll be hilarious.
Send her stuff to Harvard. That'll be awesome. This is going to be classic."
But I had to get a 1200 on the SAT to get into UT. And I was like, all right, I'll take it once and then see what my score is and then go take all the prep classes and then go take it again. First time I took it, I got a 1220. I was like, fuck it, I'm in.
Yeah. I took the SAT 3 times, and I think they allowed you to combine your best. And I remember I had like a 1080. Mm-hmm. I broke 1,000, which was important.
That is good.
And because you're not allowed to cheat on the SAT, which was a big problem for me.
Okay, yeah, because you like to cheat on
When
tests.
I had a friend, I knew some guys that pulled off a pretty good SAT caper. Because it all depended on what school you went to. Like one school had a blind as a bat old lady administering the test.
Yeah.
And you would just take the other person's ID. Like I had a smart friend who would get paid to take the SATs for people.
That's good.
But as long as it was at like Murkison Middle School, he knew that if you went there, Batilda was going to be this old broad checking the IDs. But anyway, SATs aside, my grades were good enough to, back in the 90s, UT didn't let me in, sons of bitches. Then they let my dumbass cousin in. If he's listening, you're not really a dumbass, but yeah. And he had worse grades than me, and he got, anyway. So I had to look elsewhere, and I applied all over the place. I applied to Texas Tech. We stopped in Lubbock, and I was like, just keep going. Like, cancel the motel. Like, there's no way on God's green earth I'm going to roll into town where it smells like rendered animals and roll out of town where it smells like oil being refined. I bet there's some bucktooth hillbilly broads that get laid at that school.
Yep.
But anyway, and then the other one was I don't know. I always heard you could get into Kansas. Got in there, but LSU. I got into LSU, and I really kind of equated LSU to probably being a lot like UT, being a lot of fun. And so a friend and I went to go visit LSU. And that's when I ran into this bar called Murphy's in Baton Rouge. And that's where some kid drank himself to death years later, and his buddies left him in a shopping cart all night and wheeled him around with wieners drawn on his head. But Murphy's, sadly enough, it's one of those things, you're always sad to hear a place like that closed, but in the same breath, you're like, yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
A lot of people were dying.
Just vastly. It was whenever they played the LSU fight song, the bartenders would get on the bar and pour Jaeger into your mouth the entire time. Like, you would get at least 3 good, full swallows of Jaeger. And that was where this kid, I guess he was a Deke. Dekes are real wild. And right next to Murphy's was their house, and they had their president buried alive.
With the breathing tubes?
Yeah, he had a tube sticking up and a guy guarding him.
Now, why did they need a guy guarding him?
Because in the past, people have got drunk and thought it'd be funny to kill him or, like, pour liquid down his breathing tube. And you can imagine the hilarity. Yeah,
every time I played Baton Rouge, I'd be on stage for 5 minutes before people would start sending shots up on stage. And about 10 minutes later, I would just go, you guys don't even want to hear any jokes, do you? You just want to see how much I can drink. I mean, that's cool. They're paying me either way. I'll get drunk for you if that's what you want.
In Baton Rouge, uncomfortable alcohol poisoning is comedy. Foster's beer. But this kid dove off of the second floor up on the railing. He did like a, hey, everybody look at me.
I'm the Lizard King.
Flopped onto the dance floor and like broke his ribs. Had to be taken out. And
that's no way to party.
No. And then I read that the place got shut down. Couldn't believe it. Well,
speaking of picking colleges, one of my favorite things you were telling me was you were hanging around a dorm here in Austin when a girl's father was unloading her.
Oh, God. Hardin House.
Okay.
Did you ever have any friends that lived in Hardin House?
I did. I know some girls that were in Hardin House.
Very expensive, real shishi, no boys allowed at all. But you got to have a bunch of money to have your daughter stay there.
Yep.
And some friends and I are walking through campus, just checking out the leg and going to get some food. And we're walking right in front of the Hardin House, and there's this big old boy unloading his daughter's stuff from the Suburban. And she's real pretty, and just then a blazer full of frat dudes drives by, and one of them yells, "Hey, I'm gonna fuck your daughter!" And the dad literally goes, "Pack it up, come on, pack it up."
She was no longer going to UT.
Abilene St. Christian, it is.
I'm gonna fuck your
daughter.
Pack
it up. Woo! I just thought, that guy probably took her out of there and made her go to Tech where you could keep an eye on her or something.
And he probably did not care about all the deposits he had to forfeit.
No, just another pump from the oil well will pay that off.
No blazer full of dudes is going to fuck my daughter.
And that went well for the guys in the blazer. I mean, that was an epic moment. They probably laughed, but...
They're probably still telling the story.
Have you ever been in the car or with a group of people where one of your friends decides to be the town crier and comment on something, but then your exit is obstructed? These guys blazed way down the road, went and bonged some beers. I was in Chicago, and we were going down one of those streets where there's those brownstones on every side, and there's a huge wedding procession coming down. And my friend just like almost instinctually, like a dickish instinctuality kicked in, and he just yelled, "Don't do it! He's gonna leave you!" And standstill traffic at a red light. And like the whole wedding party starting to turn, and one of them, like one of the drunk groomsmen, like, "That guy said it over there." And they like start to go, and we're like inching forward. It's like, go! Oh my god! I have to get in a fight with people in a tuxedo because of you. You happy? You happy with yourself? All right, that might have been me. Do you ever do that? I mean, have you ever been busted telling a lie that you really didn't even mean to tell? Like your memory has edited you out of the equation just so you don't feel so bad?
Yeah, like when somebody starts telling you about, hey, did you see that movie that everybody's seeing? You go, yeah, I did. And they go, what was your favorite part? You're like, oh, man, so many great parts in that movie.
Well, that's just you have a drinking problem and can't remember anything anymore. I'm talking about when you do something reprehensible and you actually remember it as someone else doing it.
Give me an example.
Well, like, for example, I really kind of partially remember that being someone else yelling that, but it wasn't.
It was you.
And the I am Jewish story.
Yes.
That is a classic Three's Company misunderstanding. You know what? We got to reset the tape because we're podcasting from the back room of the Common Interest. Maybe we should down a Jell-O shot, and we'll come back in the next seg, and I'll start with, I am Jewish.
Look, seg? Look at you.
Seg. Industry term. Don't tip the bit.
I'm not going to tip the bit.
You road dog?
I'm a road dog.
Road dog ass road dog. It's the Charlie Hodge Show podcast from the back of Common Interest. I promised you a drunken tale. You know, every year that I get older, and I'm sure this is a universal truth, the less awesome and excited I feel about telling these stories and more just depressed and depraved. You know, it used to be such a joy to try and hurt yourself by drinking so much.
Yeah.
Like for days on end, just not even sleeping and just drinking and
just waking up and drinking all over again.
And like, and you wonder, it's kind of like if you could ask God one question, you know, have I ever been near buried treasure? Instead, have I ever been near dead? Like, I know I felt like it. Like when I was so hung over it, I'm like, man, I feel like I almost died. And he'd be like, yes, you were damn close.
You were that close.
The liver is an amazing thing. Anyway, a drunken tale that is a prime example of selective memory. You're married. You can develop selective hearing, depending on what your wife has to say. And this is a true example, though, where I had no idea that I was telling a story about myself when I thought I was telling... No, it was about myself, but I came away with almost a level of chivalry in my version of it.
Yeah, you thought you were acting in the interests of others.
My brother lives in Atlanta, and he's now married with children. But back in the day, whenever I went to visit him, it was wild. You went out with all his friends, and I had some friends that lived there, and you can drink till 4 in Atlanta. Once again, a problem because it's a matter of timing your buzz.
Yeah, we live in Texas where it's 2 o'clock. You have to stop drinking, so you aim all that towards 2 o'clock. At 2 o'clock, I'll be done drinking. I was like, I went to Shreveport, and you can drink. There really is no time you can't drink in Shreveport. You know, I asked a bartender what I said. I go, what time's the last call? And he goes, what do you mean? And I was like, oh, this is going to be awesome. And, of course, you know, we were like, we're going to drink all night. And the wife and I at 2 o'clock, we're like, well, we're done.
As the waiter participates in a monkey knife fight. Closing time. Well, you don't have many rules around here. Gorgeous George, get back in the ring and fight it out. But when you go out at like 8, get some dinner and start drinking, my body just naturally has an internal clock where it knows when 2 o'clock is.
Yeah.
And by then I am soused and ready for bed. Mm-hmm. But going to 4 is just, it's like in Spaceballs. You're going ludicrous speed.
There's no reason for it. You're drunk enough. Now you just put more alcohol in your body. You're just going to feel worse the next day.
And I was telling this story, and I said, you know, I remember being in this bar in Atlanta, and my buddy and I were really drunk, and we were sitting there, and I was drinking a martini, which was a bad idea. But the reason I remember this is there are these 2 assholes sitting next to us that were just telling the most god-awful anti-Semitic jokes. And at some point, I was really sick of hearing it. I mean, I couldn't just drunkenly ignore it anymore. So I stood up, I threw my full martini in a man's face, and I said, "Hey, I am Jewish." And I even got emails and applause from the Jewish community for, in effect, standing up and being a disciple of the religion.
Did you actually get emails and applause?
No, I really did. There were Jewish listeners that wrote me, and they were like, I know you were just telling that story to be funny, but standing up for something like that's really, a cool thing to do.
Awesome.
And so I'm feeling pretty good about myself. I'm now an honorary member of the Jewish faith. I've been deputized.
Wow.
Yeah, I was
That's
deputized.
Rare. That's rare.
I got a badge, which is weird because normally putting the Star of David on you is a negative connotation. Here, mark yourself with this. But weeks passed, and then my friend that lives in Atlanta that was with me during all this came to town, and I was telling him about how I've been given my honorary Jewish status, and he just starts laughing, like hysterically. And he goes, "That really how you remember that?" And I said, "Yeah, I mean, you're with me." And he goes, "Well, elements of that happened. What really happened is we were standing in the bar, and two dudes were telling, horribly anti-Semitic jokes, and you and I just relocated to the bar. And so we didn't have to hear them anymore. We didn't say a word. And then you, Charlie, started drawing stick figures in sexual positions on bar napkins, folding them up and passing them to two dudes and a chick a few stools down. I'd slide it to them like some sort of negotiation offer. And they flip it over. And I think the first one, they're like, "Oh, yeah. And I just kept doing it, and I kept adding stick figures.
That's kind of a bizarre thing to do in public, just to people you don't know.
And that's the part where my memory tried to protect me, I guess. It just it scrubbed that part out, took another segment, cut it, pasted it into another part of the night, and polished it up where I seem like some sort of racially charged superhero.
Yes.
And the way it really went down is about the fourth or fifth napkin scrawled with stick figure porn that was passed to the group of people at the bar. Finally, one of the gentlemen stood up and said, "Hey, buddy, what the fuck is your problem?" And as he approached me, the natural fear of getting beat up kicked in. It's kind of like fight or flight, only this is fight or diversion. And I stand up and I throw my martini in his face and I scream, "I am Jewish!" And immediately the bartenders are there, the bouncers.
How did you not get beat up by
I told the bouncer, I said, "Look, I'm Jewish and this guy's been saying horrible things. And so the bouncer's investigating and the guy's going like, "That's crazy." And my buddy and I slip out the back and threatened to tip over a fortune. I mean, it got this fortune teller ripped us off. I mean, just the night got worse and worse. We almost both did a Dukes of Hazzard slide across the hood of this mint Camaro, but it had tinted windows, and a cop in uniform got out of it and goes, "Don't even think about it. Don't even think about it." Because we were narrating what we were about to do.
You were going to drive?
No, we were just going to slide across the hood because it looked like such a good opportunity. But you couldn't see inside. We had no idea there was a person in there, much less a police officer. And all of a sudden the door opens and we're already like, "Oh, crap, someone's in there." Then it's a uniformed cop. It's like, that would have been a pretty open and shut case.
So it was a uniformed cop in an unmarked car?
Yeah, not only unmarked, but like the most cherry 1988 Camaro. Red.
The way you remember it, it could have been an actual cop car, for all you know.
Touché, butthole. Touché. What stupid memory. Enough embarrassing stories about myself. I don't know why I ever do that. When, look at this, I have an entire stack of things in front of me, and they pretty much all involve, stupidity of others. Mm. But this is where you get, humility, I think. You know how Oprah is fat, and so her audience connects with her? She's a billionaire, but still they're like, "Well, she does have weight issues. I understand that."
Okay, they see themselves in her, maybe.
Maybe this is how I kind of connect.
Yeah.
I act all lofty when I read these stories out of the dong of America. But really, aren't we all dongs?
Dongtastic, occasionally.
The dong of America, though, Florida, does produce a crazy amount of scummy, awesome news. And this is no exception. Out of Largo, a Largo man's late-night craving had him demand tacos and then end up in jail for misuse of 911. Terry Kimball, this citizen of the Dong, called 911 from his cell phone to inform the dispatcher Taco Bell would not sell him tacos while he stood in the drive-thru lane. A local news station obtained the 911 call, and I've got a transcript. You want to play the dispatcher?
Yes, I do.
All right. You just answer the phone.
Okay.
Largo emergency.
911, what's your emergency?
It's not an emergency. However, can you put me through to dispatch? I'm at the Taco Bell, and I walked in, and I left my car where it was on purpose so I wouldn't get, a drinking and driving. I walked up to the drive-thru, and they wouldn't serve me. So I'm at the Taco Bell at 137th Street. Just send a car. That's it.
Sir, this is an emergency line. You don't want to call us. You're tying up an emergency line. This is against the law.
When I get refused service for no reason, it tees me off. So I call you guys. Does that make sense?
No, it doesn't make sense. This is a call for real, actual emergencies, not Taco Bell complaints.
He then asks the dispatcher if he can patch him through to the Taco Bell manager. Yeah, I would like to talk to the Taco Bell manager.
Yes, sir, I can handle that for you, because that's what we do here at 911, is we patch people through to the Taco Bell manager, you jackass.
That's actually when you motion to your buddy in the 911 dispatch office, and you turn off the tape. You mumble, "Thanks for calling, gotta go." Turn it off the tape, and then you go, "Yes, let me patch you through to the Taco Bell manager." Beep, boop, 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 bop, boop, beep. Here you go. His name is Felix.
Hi, I'm Felix.
Suck ass, loser.
Yeah.
What, you son of a bitch?
See, I think 911 operators have great stories after work. They go get a beer and swap stories.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably, on the top of their lips.
But it kind of jades an individual. Have you ever been watching a crime show and the dispatcher answers the phone and has just an alarming level of lackadaisicalness? Mm-hmm. And they're like, "Oh my God, my husband's bleeding to death on the floor. Where are you?"
Yeah.
And they're just like put out. It's like, oh, that's it.
Well, they're trained not to be fazed by that. They got to keep calm no matter what it is. Like, yeah, there's a bear on fire. It's coming right at me. All right, can you describe the bear?
Well,
it's
to be
on fire.
Pretty much any bear you see that's on fire, that's probably going to be, your culprit. No, but I always imagine that they're not trained. I think they're playing Angry Birds.
Yeah?
And you just really screwed
Distracted
up
them?
oh, son of a...
I almost had this Sudoku figured out, you son of a bitch.
What? Flaming bear.
Blood, death,
bye.
destruction. Okay, we'll get somebody out there. We'll have them bring Taco Bell.
And while we're on the Dong of America, this is just a classic no-no. Really, whether you're in Florida or not, the same applies. A Miami-Dade man was using a car's sunroof to expose himself illegally. Julio Saracas, he's 31 years old, is accused of standing up through the sunroof of a silver Mercedes-Benz with his pants down, exposing himself and making a self-stimulating gesture with his hand. He was doing the Kenny Powers, like making it rain on the crowd.
with sperm.
Just flinging it. And then he flung it on a sheriff. He migged a sheriff.
That's what
He air-migged a sheriff as he drove by in a benzo.
That's where he went wrong.
And this was one of those cops that really took his job serious, because the cop even like reacted as if an air load hit him in the face. He even recoiled, like, "Ugh, you're gonna throw an air load at me, are you?" Woo!
I think air load's the name of this one.
Air load.
Air load.
That's one of my favorite cinematic references. Whenever you can bring up Miggs from Silence of the Lambs, the guy who's in the cell next to Hannibal Lecter, he just kind of has some gibberish. I don't know. Does he have lines?
Yes, he does.
He's mumbling something.
His one line's pretty big, and she's made to repeat it, if you recall.
Can you taste
what
me?
What did Mig say to you? He said, "I can smell your cunt."
That's it.
I, however, cannot smell it.
And when he said that, he flung a him frisbee in her face.
Exactly.
And it just spideyed through the air and like a creepy crawler smacked
on the side of the face.
Smacked the face that is the sliding glass door, and creepy walked its way down.
Yeah. And then Lecter got him back by making him kill himself.
You're right. He did love Clarice.
Yes.
He had a weird way of showing it. Mm-hmm. But in the end, that's true love. When you using only your words convince a man to kill himself.
Cause the psycho in the next cell to kill himself. That's love, man.
It is love.
That is pure, true love.
I'm not sure there's ever been a movie that's as terrifying as that. Like, they have all the new Saw movies, and those are graphically disturbing, but just psychologically...
The night vision thing was so scary. That scene, I couldn't do anything. I just wanted it to be over either way. Either kill her or just, have her get away. I don't care. Just I want this to stop because I'm so terrified.
And it's pitch black in there, and James Gumb, or Buffalo Bill...
Oh, wait. Was she a great big fat person?
He's got the night vision goggles on, so he's looking at her. But it's kind of like in Braveheart or the other movies where I've seen them too many times, so I start focusing on other details.
Picking them apart.
And I can't help but picture Buffalo Bill in that room. I mean, he's wearing night vision goggles and terrifying Agent Clarice Starling. But he's wearing whitey-tighties and night vision goggles. Like, you don't see him, but all that in that scene with the tense music, really, it's a mullet head wearing whitey-tighties and some night vision goggles, prancing around in a room.
He had all the advantages, and yet she came out the victor in that battle.
They say you want to get caught.
I guess. It was a cry for help, I suppose.
And they freed the girl that was in the well. That's right. She gets away.
The senator's daughter, she got away.
I wonder if she gained all that weight back, He was thinning her down so her skin would be loose for the skin suit.
Yeah.
But you wonder, sometimes, people say what kick-started their weight loss was an injury. Like, they couldn't eat solid foods, and they lost 30 pounds. And ever since then, I never went back.
Jennifer, you look great. How did you do it? Serial killer put me in a hole in his basement.
Do you recommend it? Yeah, I do.
Wink.
I mean, could I be wearing this if I hadn't been locked in that dungeon? Wink.